They laughed when she stepped into the classroom. Not because she was late, not because she was new, but because she was different. What they didn't know? She wasn't just a transfer student. She was a storm they weren't ready for. Her name was Amara Okoye. From Nigeria, she had always dreamed of one thing: leaving, starting over, becoming something bigger. So when she got a scholarship to study in Seoul, it felt like her life was finally beginning. But no one warned her that dreams can turn into nightmares. The classroom fell silent as she walked in. Then whispers started. Why is she here? Does she even understand Korean? She looks strange. Amara kept her head down. She had promised herself, no matter what happens, I won't go back. But then, a boy stood up. Tall, cold, untouchable. Jin Woo, the most feared student in the school. He looked her up and down, then smirked. This isn't a charity school. The class burst into laughter. And just like that, she became their target. It started small. Books knocked off her desk. Chair pulled away before she sat. Whispers that followed her everywhere. But then it got worse. One day, she opened her locker and froze. Trash, rotten food, and a note. Go back to where you came from. Her hands trembled. Her chest tightened. But she didn't cry. Not there. Not in front of them. That same day, she was called to the rooftop. Jin Woo was there. Alone. Waiting. Why are you still here? He asked coldly. Amara clenched her fists. Because I earned my place. He stepped closer. No. People like you don't belong here. Then he pushed her. Not off the building, but enough to remind her. She had no power here. Or so he thought. That night, Amara sat alone in her tiny apartment. Phone in hand. She stared at a contact she hadn't called in years. Dad. Her finger hovered. Then she pressed it. The line rang once. Twice. Then a deep voice answered. You finally called. Her voice cracked. I need help. Silence. Then, who touched you? Her eyes widened. Because that tone wasn't concern. It was danger. The next morning, a black car pulled up in front of the school. Students gathered, whispering, watching. The door opened. Men in suits stepped out. Cold. Serious. Not normal. Not students. Not teachers. Jin Woo frowned. For the first time, he looked unsure. And then, Amara stepped out behind them. Different. Calm. Unshaken. She looked straight at him and said, You should have left me alone. Yesterday, they laughed at her, humiliated her, treated her like she didn't belong. But today, everything changed. Because the girl they bullied didn't come back alone. The entire school stood frozen. That black car wasn't normal. The men who stepped out? Sharp suits. Cold eyes. No smiles. Even the teachers looked nervous. Amara walked behind them, calm, composed. Not the same girl from yesterday. Jin Woo narrowed his eyes. What is this, some kind of joke? One of the men stepped forward. Watch your tone. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. For the first time, Jin Woo didn't have control. Inside the principal's office, the atmosphere was suffocating. The principal, who once ignored Amara's complaints, now sat stiffly, sweating. One of the suited men placed a file on the table. Slowly. This school has problems. The principal forced a smile. We handle things internally. Not anymore. The room went quiet. Amara stood by the window, saying nothing. Watching. Waiting. Then the man added. Effective immediately, things will change. Back in class. No one dared speak. Amara walked in. This time, no laughter. No whispers. Only fear. She sat down. Then, Jin Woo stood up. Walked toward her. Slow. Careful. What did you do? She looked up at him. No fear in her eyes anymore. Nothing. Pause. I just stopped staying quiet. The class held its breath. But Jin Woo leaned closer. Whispered. You think this changes anything? Amara didn't respond. But for the first time, he wasn't sure. Rumors exploded across the school. Her father is rich. No, he's connected. I heard he owns companies. But no one knew the truth. Not even Jin Woo. And that bothered him. Because for the first time, there was someone he couldn't read. That evening, Jin Woo sat in a dim room. Phone pressed to his ear. Find out everything about her. Silence. Then the voice on the other end replied. You don't want to dig into that. Jin Woo frowned. Why? A pause. Then, because the last person who tried disappeared. Silence filled the room. Jin Woo slowly lowered the phone. For the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar. Unease. Meanwhile, Amara sat alone again. Same small apartment. Same silence. But this time, her phone buzzed. A message from her father. Did they touch you again? She stared at the screen, then typed. No. But her hands trembled. Because deep down, she knew something. Calling him changed everything. And not all of it was good. The next day, a notice was posted across the school. Everyone gathered, confused, whispering. Jean Wu pushed through the crowd. Read it. And froze. Student disciplinary hearing, Jean Wu. The entire school gasped. His name, publicly, exposed. He slowly turned and locked eyes with Amara. She stood at the top of the stairs, looking down at him, calm, unshaken. You said I didn't belong here. She paused. Let's see if you still do. That hearing wasn't just punishment. It was war. They thought she was weak. They thought she was alone. But now, the most powerful boy in school is about to fall. The entire school gathered in the main hall. Students whispered, phones secretly recording. Because this was history. Jean Wu stood at the front, expression cold, but his eyes tense. Across the room, Amara sat quietly, watching, waiting. The principal cleared his throat. We are here today to address serious accusations. Bullying, harassment, abuse. Each word hit harder than the last. But Jean Wu didn't flinch. Do you deny these claims? The principal asked. Silence. Then, yes. Gasps spread across the room. He turned slowly and looked straight at Amara. She's lying. The room shifted, tension rising. Then, one of the suited men stepped forward, placed a tablet on the table, tapped the screen. A video started playing. The classroom, the locker, the rooftop, everything. Clear, undeniable. The entire hall froze. Jean Wu's jaw tightened. For the first time, he had no words. The principal's voice shook. This is unacceptable. But before anyone could speak again, Jean Wu laughed. Low, dangerous. You think this ends me? He stepped forward, slowly, fearlessly. You all act like you don't know who I am. Silence. Heavy. Then he continued. My family built half of this city. The room went dead quiet. Teachers looked away. Students lowered their heads. Because it was true. Power wasn't just money. It was influence, control, fear. Jean Wu turned to Amara. You started something you can't finish. Then, one of the suited men leaned in, whispered something to the principal. The principal's face changed. Completely. Pale. Shaken. He stood up. Voice unsteady. There's additional information. The hall went silent. Amara Okoye. Pause. Is under the protection of a private international authority. Confusion spread. Jean Wu frowned. What does that even mean? Then, the doors opened. Slowly, heavy footsteps echoed. A man walked in. Calm. Powerful. Terrifyingly composed. Amara didn't turn. She already knew. Dad, the room froze. The man stepped forward. Eyes scanning the room. Cold. Precise. He stopped in front of Jean Wu, looked at him for a long second, then said, You touch my daughter. Not a question. A statement. Jean Wu held his ground. Barely. And if I did? The man smiled slightly. Not kindly. Then you've made the biggest mistake of your life. No shouting. No violence. But somehow, it felt worse. The man turned to the principal. Handle this properly. Then looked back at Jean Wu. Or I will. That was it. Simple. But deadly. Because everyone in that room felt it. This wasn't a man you challenged. The decision came fast. Too fast. Jean Wu, you are suspended. Effective immediately. Shock exploded across the hall. The untouchable was finally touched. Jean Wu clenched his fists. Looked at Amara. Anger. Confusion. Something else. Something deeper. Then he said quietly, This isn't over. Later that night, Amara stood by the window. City lights glowing. Her father stepped beside her. You did well. She didn't respond. Instead, she asked, What did you do to make them afraid of you? Silence. Then, what I had to. She turned to him. For the first time, not as a daughter, but as someone realizing the truth. Who are you really? He didn't answer, just smiled slightly, and walked away, leaving her with one terrifying realization. She didn't just bring power into her life. She brought darkness. And somewhere in the city, Jean Wu sat in the shadows, phone in hand, voice cold. Call them. Pause. If she brought monsters into this. He smirked. Then so will I. He was untouchable until she exposed him. She was powerless until her father arrived. But now, both of them are about to realize Power always comes with a price. The city looked peaceful at night. But underneath, something was moving. Jin Woo sat in a dark room. Not his house. Not his school. Somewhere, hidden. Across from him. 3 men. Dangerous. Silent. Watching. One of them leaned forward. You said you needed help. Jin Woo didn't hesitate. I want her gone. Silence. Then the man smirked. That girl isn't normal. Jin Woo's eyes hardened. Neither am I. Meanwhile, Amara followed her father into a private building. No signs. No names. Just security everywhere. Inside, men and women moved with precision. Screens. Files. Surveillance. It wasn't a company. It wasn't business. It was something else. Something deeper. What is this place? She asked. Her father didn't look at her. It's where problems get solved. Her heart tightened. Legally. He paused. Then, effectively, she stopped walking. You didn't just protect me, did you? Silence. He turned slowly. I removed a threat. Her chest felt heavy. He's just a student. No, her father replied calmly. He's the son of a very dangerous man. Everything clicked. This wasn't school anymore. This wasn't bullying anymore. This was power versus power. The next day, the school felt different. Tense. Unstable. Then, a student ran into class. Panicked. Did you hear? Everyone turned. Jin Woo's family company just got investigated. Gasps. Phones came out. News spreading fast. Stocks dropping. Reputation collapsing. Amara froze. Slowly turned to her father's message on her phone. Stay out of this. Her hands trembled. Because she knew. This was his doing. Back in the shadows. Jin Woo slammed his fist against the table. They touched my family. The men around him stayed calm. Watching. Measuring. Good, one of them said. Jin Woo looked up. Confused. Now you understand. Pause. This isn't school anymore. Jin Woo's breathing slowed. Eyes darkening. Changing. Then teach me. The man smiled. Careful. Once you enter this world, you don't come back. That night, Amara stood in front of a mirror. But the girl staring back wasn't the same. No fear. No hesitation. Just questions. Dark ones. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You started this. Another message. Can you finish it? She stared at the screen. Then typed slowly. Who is this? The reply came instantly. Someone who knows what your father really is. Her heart dropped. The next day, school rooftop. The same place everything started. Amara stood there. Wind blowing. Waiting. Footsteps approached. She didn't turn. You came, she said. Jin Woo stepped forward. Different. Colder. More dangerous. You ruined everything. She finally faced him. You started it. Silence. Heavy. Explosive. No, he said quietly. You did, the moment you made that call. Suddenly, phones buzzed across the school. Students gasped. Teachers panicked. News alerts everywhere. Major international investigation launched. Multiple powerful families involved. Names being exposed. Amara's phone vibrated. A message from her father. You need to leave. Now. She looked up. Jin Woo was staring at his phone too. Then slowly, he smiled. Dark. Dangerous. Too late. It started with bullying. Then power got involved. Now, families are collapsing. Secrets are leaking. And 2 people who should be enemies are about to cross a line they can't come back from. The news spread like wildfire. Phones buzzing. Screens flashing. Names dropping. Powerful families exposed. Investigations launched. Businesses crashing overnight. Inside the school, no one cared about classes anymore. This wasn't normal life. This was something bigger. Something dangerous. Amara stood in the hallway, watching everything fall apart. And deep down, she knew the truth. This is because of me. Her phone rang. She answered immediately. Dad. His voice was colder than ever. You need to leave Seoul. Now. Why? Silence. Then. Because this is no longer under control. Her heart dropped. What did you do? Pause. What I had to protect you. But this time, it didn't feel like protection. It felt like destruction. Back at the private facility, something was wrong. Alarms. People running. Shouting. Amara walked in. Confused. What's happening? One of the agents turned to her. We've been compromised. Her stomach tightened. By who? Silence. Then, someone inside. A screen lit up. Security footage. A familiar face. One of her father's closest men. The same one who stood beside him from the beginning. Amara's eyes widened. That's impossible. But then, The man appeared behind her, clapping slowly. Not impossible. Inevitable. She turned, heart racing. Why? He smiled. Cold. Because your father isn't the only one with power. Elsewhere, Jinwoo stood in a dimly lit room. Different now. Sharper. Colder. More dangerous. The men around him watched carefully. You've changed, one of them said. Jinwoo didn't respond. Just stared at the screen showing Amara's chaos. Good, the man continued. Pain creates power. Jinwoo finally spoke. No. Pause. It creates monsters. Then he looked up, eyes dark. And I'm just getting started. Back at the facility, everything spiraled. Gunshots echoed in the distance. People shouting. Running. Amara stood frozen. This wasn't what she wanted. This wasn't what she asked for. Her hands shook. I just wanted it to stop. But now, it would never stop. Because she opened the door. And what came through couldn't be controlled. Night fell. The city silent. Too silent. Amara stood alone on an empty street. Then, footsteps. She didn't turn. You came. Jinwoo stopped a few steps behind her. You called this down on all of us. She turned slowly. You pushed me first. Silence. Tension thick. Explosive. Look around, he said quietly. This isn't school anymore. She nodded. I know. Pause. Then. So what now? Jinwoo stepped closer. Not as an enemy. Not fully. Something else. We ended. Her eyes narrowed. How? He looked at her. Dead serious. Together. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Because deep down, they both knew. Teaming up didn't mean peace. It meant something worse. Suddenly, an explosion echoed in the distance. Both of them turned. Smoke rising into the night sky. Amara's phone buzzed. A message from her father. They've started the war. Jinwoo's phone buzzed too. A message. Target confirmed. They looked at each other, realizing the truth at the same time. This wasn't about them anymore. This was bigger. Much bigger. And they were right in the middle of it. It began with a girl, trying to survive. Then came power. Then came revenge. Now, a war has begun. And the only way to end it is to destroy everything. The city was no longer peaceful. Sirens echoed through the night. News stations flooded with breaking updates. Powerful families collapsing one by one. This wasn't hidden anymore. It was open. Violent. Unstoppable. Amara stood on a rooftop, watching it all burn. This is my fault. But behind her, a voice answered. No. She turned. Jinwoo. This was always going to happen. They stood facing each other. Not as enemies. Not as friends. Something in between. We stopped them, Jinwoo said. Both sides. Amara frowned. That includes your family. And yours, he replied. Silence. Heavy. Then she nodded. Because deep down, she knew he was right. Inside a hidden control room, Amara finally confronted him. Tell me the truth. Her father stood still, then slowly turned. I don't run a company. Pause. I run a network. Her heart dropped. What kind of network? Silence. Then, the kind that removes threats before they grow. Everything clicked. The fear, the power, the control. He wasn't just protecting her. He was controlling everything. Tears filled her eyes. You ruined lives. He stepped closer. I protected you. At what cost? Silence. Then, at the cost of everything. That was it. That moment. She realized. She couldn't follow him anymore. Back with Jinwoo. She told him everything. No more secrets. No more lie. We take them down, she said. All of them. Jinwoo looked at her carefully. That includes your father. She didn't hesitate this time. I know. Night. Rain pouring. The city glowing under chaos. They moved together. Fast. Silent. Focused. Breaking into the control center. Alarms triggered. Guards moving. Everything spiraling. But they didn't stop. Because this was the point of no return. Inside the control room, her father stood waiting. Like he knew they would come. I was wondering when you'd choose. Amara stepped forward. It ends tonight. He looked at Jinwoo. You trust him? She didn't answer. But she didn't step back either. Suddenly, gunshots. Chaos. The traitor from before appeared again. Everything broke. Shots fired. People shouting. And in that moment, Jinwoo moved. Fast. Without thinking. A gunshot rang out. Amara froze. Jinwoo stumbled. Then dropped to his knees. Why? She whispered. He looked up at her. Faint smile. Because you were never meant for this world. Something inside her snapped. Not fear. Not sadness. Something deeper. She turned to her father. Eyes cold. Resolved. It's over. And this time, he saw it. She wasn't his daughter anymore. She was someone else. Days later, the city slowly returned to normal. The war? Silenced. Hidden again. Amara stood alone, looking at the skyline. Changed. Forever. Her phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. This world doesn't let people like us go. She stared at it, then slowly typed. I'm not running anymore.